today's video, we're going to talk about some of my biggest regrets when I was building my startup. So 6 or 7 years ago, I was working on an app from my couch, and while it didn't completely fail, it kind of meandered. There were still a few things that while I was building this, I took mental notes of, really scars. And I want to share those so if you ever think about building a startup or you're just at a company, you can consider these things because they wasted time and money for me. And if I were to repeat this process, I would 100% give these things consideration. With that in mind, I want to get into the first thing, which is the most expensive thing. You may have heard the expression, the most expensive thing is a cheap lawyer. You'll hear this from founders that are at later stage startups or at bigger companies, and they say that the most expensive thing is a bad lawyer because if you screw something up at the formation, then it could really haunt you down the line in terms of time and money. So here's an example. If you hire a cheap lawyer and something doesn't get settled with founder equity, then you could be open to lawsuits in the future that could cost you tons and tons of money. So you want to invest upfront so that you get the right thing done so that you never have to worry about it again. And while I didn't have that problem with lawyers, I was way too small for something like that, I did make the most expensive thing problem with a few other issues. And for me, that was engineering and design. Now, the issue with using an engineer that's good but not great is that in the future, you may find yourself redoing their work. So for me, when I was bootstrapping my business, having an engineer on the clock that I was paying $80, $100, $120 hourly, if we had to redo that work, it was coming directly out of my personal finances, and so it got super expensive. And when I was building the app, I went through many iterations, which meant that not taking the time to find a co-founder or find a better solution for my engineering, it hurt me badly. And if I were to do this again, I would 100% make sure that I found the right permanent resource, whether that's a full-time employee or a technical co-founder, so I didn't need to worry about it again. And similar to that, a designer or a good designer can be just as bad. So if you want to build something great, you need to have a great designer. If you have a good designer, then you lend yourself down the line to redoing the user experience, to redoing the branding, to redoing screens. And the best analogy I have for that would be, it's like if you build a whole house and then you decide you need different rooms to go in different places. You have to rip down walls and you're really building something over again that you could have done right if you just had the right blueprints the first time. And so if I were to ever build a startup again, I would invest more in engineering and more in design. And honestly, I think I got a little duped because I was big, growing up in the startup world back in like the 2010s when the lean startup was the way to do it and everyone was talking so much about MVPs, and that's cool and it's nice to get like a test of your product. But if you're bootstrapping a business, you're paying so much for that MVP when you don't have the money for it. And I wish I thought about my business less as an MVP and more as a business right from the jump, because I think I would have sidestepped some of these issues that ended up haunting me down the road. So for you, as you're thinking about your business, think about what the most expensive thing could be, if it's lawyers, if it's designers, and see if you want to invest in those things now to eliminate the risk of having them be major payouts down the line. The next thing I want to talk about is Qik, so I'll go over it quickly. I would never develop another iPhone app. I think if you have a late stage business where you know that people will automatically go download your app and it's an extension of your service, it could make sense, but I would never build an iPhone app as my standalone product. There are just so many issues when you are developing for Apple. Here are just a couple that come to mind. First, they launched their whole programming language while I was developing this app, so we had to redo the whole code base to be compliant. And not only that, once you get it working, they're constantly updating this and way faster and in ways that break your product more than other programming languages. Secondly, in order to get your app live, you need to go through Apple's code reviews, which just mean there's extra days before your app is live in production, meaning if you catch errors or want to do quick releases, that's completely off the table. They take unnecessary fees. For me, it was 30% from people who came in, no questions asked, which is just absolutely ridiculous because I didn't really want to be in the App Store in the first place. There's very little discovery. They're now making you pay for your ads. So if you can avoid it at all, I would think, what else can I do before developing an iPhone app, whether that's mobile web or just, not even doing the product if you know that it's going to be an iPhone app. Just my 2 cents. Of course, a little bitter from my experience with it. Some people have had success with this, but I would recommend that if you're not 100% confident in your abilities to develop an app, or it's not like your native thing that you work on, avoid it. And the last thing is something I absolutely carry with me, which is going big. So if I were to ever build another startup, I would try and push the envelope. What I mean by that is when I worked on my first app, I was just optimizing people's routines in the gym, which was fine and it added some value, but best case, I'd be optimizing someone's routine a little bit. While I was doing this, there were other companies that were shaking up the industry or pushing the boundaries. Companies like Peloton in the beginning. You even have companies that were doing audio workouts, that type of thing. Just new stuff that was getting people excited about working out, where I was just trying to optimize a little bit. And if I were to ever go build another startup or work on another, early stage company, I'd make sure that the product I truly believe could change the industry. It's exciting to work on. You have a higher potential of growth, which makes everything easier. And failure is binary. Either you work on something and it succeeds, or eventually it doesn't. And I'd rather try to do something and sell something and be a part of something that is going to have a big trajectory versus using this floor of failure with a really light curve. These are the three things that stick with me the most when it comes to doing another startup or working at a company. One is always keeping in mind that I'm not doing the most expensive thing, meaning sometimes I'd pay up a little bit more now to ensure that it's not an issue down the line. Second, I'd avoid dealing with Apple. And third, I think you need to work on something that's pushing the envelope or pushing boundaries, because the growth will come, the momentum will come, the excitement will come, and worst case scenario, it doesn't work out, but that's the same type of scenario if you were to work on something less exciting. I hope you found this helpful, and if you want to talk more business, please hit that subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.